Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is the Breaking Free Show. And I welcome you here today, and I know your time is valuable, so I'm glad to have you here. And let me introduce Amnon. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good. You busy over there?
I'm busy over here.
Amnon keeps it all straight, because I would probably lose that part. So how's it going?
It's going okay.
Yeah. You having a good week?
So far.
So far.
So far, it's great.
My
Yours?
week, so far.
Obviously, you're here, so it's
I'm
okay.
here, and I had a lot to do this morning, and I made it, so I'm here. And I hope your weeks are going great, too. I don't care where it starts, whether it starts Saturday, Sunday, today, whatever. Every day should be another week, maybe. I don't know. So if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. You can take part in our chat. If you go to the right of the window where you're seeing my picture, you'll see a little line. Put your name in there, click OK, and you'll be part of our chat. You can always comment, ask a question, engage with us anytime. Also, you can always feel free during the show to call in 919-518-9773. Or if you're somewhere in the world and you can't get to a phone, please feel free also to Skype in with us at Computers 2K. That's the number 2K voice. So, every week we bring such terrific guests to our show, highlights of what's going on in the world, ideas, tools, strategies, new concepts, new ways of being that other people can share with each and every one of us, so that we all can just break free a little bit more and more each day and access that authentic self, that power that we have inside of ourselves to do and be whomever we want, whenever we want, and to trust it, to know that no matter what that is, it's all going to be okay. And today is really interesting. I mean, I am fascinated by what I have learned about my guest and about our topic. And so I want to first read you a quote that came out of the book today that we're going to be talking about. And this is going to be one of the quotes that I take with me wherever I go. So this is it. There is a road from my eye to my heart that does not go through the intellect. G.K. Chesterton. And I'm going to repeat it one more time. There is a road from my eye to my heart that does not go through the intellect. G.K. Chesterton. And I'm going to tell you something. This is a really amazing quote, because what it says is that what you see goes right into the heart. There's no reason to process it. Just trust what you see. That's all you have to do. Go with your intuition and trust what you see, get into what you see. So I'm going to introduce my guest to you today, and she is lovely. Her name is Noelle Mead Izzi. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name right. Yes. And she's really interesting. She is an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, author, speaker, award-winning graphic designer, and a renowned Natu journalist. And I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but if not, she's going to tell me. She's very interesting. I spoke to Noelle a little while ago prior to the show, and I was fascinated by what she had done. She had been in corporate America, left corporate America, decided to go out on her own and create her own advertising company, which she was about to do until the stock market said, and the universe said, we have something else in store for you. So with that, I'm going to introduce Noelle to you, and I want her, in her own words, to share with you her story, because nobody says it exactly the way she can, but she will captivate you as she shares this amazing thing that she was witness to. So Noelle, welcome.
Thank you. Gosh, that's a big big thing to live up to. I hope I do captivate.
Well, it's interesting. The simplest things are the most extraordinary things. So, you got me when you started talking about your experience, and when she was talking about this, I could really sense this amazing thing that she had been witness to. And I thought, wow, this is great. We want to bring this to you. So share with everyone your story and what exactly happened, and then we'll go from there.
Well, as you mentioned, the genesis of the experience with this little creature was during the market crash of 2008. And as you mentioned, I had just started my own company. I left a really, secure job to become an entrepreneur. I thought it was the right time under the right conditions. I had purchased my own home a couple years prior, and I was newly single, but I felt like I had the world in the palm of my hands. I felt like, this was perfect timing, and it was all uphill or all smooth sailing from there. And then the market crash hit. But what I want to say is, although things were sort of crumbling around me, I wasn't personally experiencing any of the effects of the market crash yet. And what I want to emphasize is that the self-fulfilling prophecies that you kind of put yourself through, because what I actually did is I started to inundate myself with the what ifs. And it wasn't that I was losing my house. It wasn't that I was losing any clients. Now, there was a little bit of waning of the income that was coming in, but I was still able to take care of myself. But the what ifs is what got me. What if I do lose my house? What if I can't maintain my client base? What if I have to go move in with mom and dad again? What if, what if, what if? And suddenly my body starts reacting to the what ifs, the thing that isn't even tangible yet, with a physical reaction, which was panic attacks. And the panic attacks were debilitating. I mean, the first time I experienced a panic attack, I thought I was having a cardiac arrest. And I went to see a doctor, and I went to see a cardiologist, and they did all the tests on me and checked my heart and so on and so forth. And the doctor said what you experienced was anxiety and an attack of anxiety. But we'll check all these other things just to make sure, because at that time I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? I've never experienced anything like this before. The doctor did say, good news, the panic attacks can't kill you, and we can put you on any kind of anti-anxiety drug if that's something you're interested in, if you want to discuss that. And at the time I wasn't ready to do that. What I wanted to do was figure out how I can put myself through an internal healing, because I knew this was something that I was bringing on myself. And I was just not grounded enough to be able to handle adversity at that time in my life. And I think that happens to a lot of people, is we're not centered and anchored enough to be able to handle things that are coming at you, and you sort of spiral out of control. And that's what happened to me. So I decided to do a lot of praying. I decided to go for a lot of walks outdoors and just, ask God to help me through this, nature, whatever was willing to sort of, listen at that time to my pleas, help me through this. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to open up and accept what it is I need to change. And the reason why the book is called The Hummingbird That Answered My Heart's Calling is for that reason. This hummingbird answered my heart's calling. It answered my prayers. And the healing journey that took place, the shared journey that took place, was something that changed my life forever.
So now, so you're in pain and you're not knowing what to do next, and your life is just like, maybe it had already been so planned out. And now it's left up to surrendering. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Absolutely.
So this hummingbird. So now bring us to the story of the hummingbird.
So one afternoon, and completely unexpected, that's one of the things that I learned, was that don't take for granted the way that heaven or the supreme intelligence, God, whatever we want to call it, is trying to communicate with you and help you to heal and move along your divine path. Because when we discount and we have expectations of the way something's supposed to look, we will miss it altogether. And so one afternoon I went out to my balcony and I noticed a little nest on a branch that was hanging over the railing of my balcony, probably 2 feet away from me. And there was no bird in it at the time, but I was sort of taken aback, like, wow, what is this? This is like the smallest thing, I think it's a nest, I've ever seen. Although when I got close enough to it, the architecture, the design, the brilliance of how well crafted this little nest was. I was just in awe. I couldn't stop staring at it.
Let me ask you something. In your life up to this point, were you somebody that would have noticed a nest?
Probably not. I mean, I've always been kind of someone that was a daydreamer. I'd go outside. I liked to run, so I liked to be outdoors and sort of breathe in the fresh air. But to take notice of something, really small in my field of vision, pay that close attention, I don't think so. Mm-hmm. Now, just so you know, that's totally changed now.
Right.
But at that time, it was a pretty new thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was curious if in your busy life as an entrepreneur and, and a career woman, if you normally would have paid attention to those things, because,
like most people, nature and all the beauty in nature is pretty much a backdrop to our busy life. And that's pretty much what it was. I mean, if there was something really out there and catching everybody's attention, I'd notice it. But these small little things have become big in my life right now, and it started with that.
And I'm glad you said a backdrop, because what I want everybody to know is, this backdrop, after spending a little time with Noelle, becomes the front drop, not the backdrop, becomes the front thing. So that's how it feels for me. So, okay,
Yeah.
So continue with your story.
So I waited around because I wanted to see if there was an actual bird that was nesting on my balcony. I was actually, just so thrilled and couldn't wait to see if something was going to show up. And sure enough, here comes this little bird. And you know how fast hummingbirds fly. I mean, they're very elusive. And she made her landing in the nest so quickly. And she had, as I mentioned in the book, she had all of these spider webs kind of like, in her beak and on her neck and chest. And she pulled them away from her body, and she started tucking the little spider webs around the nest to, create a nice glued, cohesive little unit, a little house. And after she did that, she kind of settled in the nest for a little bit and took a break. And as she took a break, I sat there with her. And like I said, she was only a couple feet away from me. And I could have even gotten closer. I mean, there were times when I would inch a little bit closer to her and she wouldn't flinch, never bothered her. I mean, I believe we formed some kind of shared something between us, because there was no fear on her end. And I didn't feel like I was assuming anything. I wasn't pushing myself on her. And so it was just this mutual kind of natural, relaxed communication between us. So I just sort of caught her eyes and she caught my eyes, and I sort of introduced myself, which is kind of funny, but I do remember saying, hello, it's so nice to make your acquaintance, and so throughout the day, I sat out there and I'd go in and out and I'd do some work, and I would watch her fly back and forth while she would continue to build her nest. And then eventually she laid only one egg. And then I was able to watch the entire process of 3 months of the nest building, the incubating of the egg, the hatching of her nestling, the way that she mothered this teeny tiny little bird. I mean, the chick of a hummingbird is so tiny you almost can't see it in the nest. It's so small. And it was just the most beautiful experience. I mean, the great thing about this is I was able to capture it in photography, because it just seemed like every time there was something really important to capture in the process, I just happened to be there. And but at the same time, I would journal, because remember, I was going through anxiety and panic attacks and insomnia and just a lack of well-being when this all took place. And so as I journaled and I observed and I watched this beautiful thing unfold in front of me, I remember thinking to myself, I haven't had a panic attack in a couple days. And then, a night went by and I slept all the way through until the sun rose. And I was like, I slept through the night last night. And so one of the aha moments was this beautiful distraction is what helped me through a physical healing of my body and my mind. Mm-hmm. And so it was wonderful. It was just the most beautiful thing. And she took me through 3 months until it ended, and they had to do what nature does, and that's fledge, both of them, and off into the sunbeams they flew.
I've never experienced, and I don't think I've ever experienced anything quite like that before to that degree. And I think by submerging yourself in that experience, you kind of are getting you are getting right into the spinning of nature. You're getting right into the what's going on. And once you do that, being I feel like I'm in the window looking into your experience. Let me read a paragraph from the beginning of Noelle's book, just so you can have an idea. It's a beautiful book. So this story is a wondrous encounter that brings to light the parallels between nature and humans. It is a story that demonstrates the pervasive interconnectedness between all of nature, the innate giving and receiving quality of all living organisms. It is a story that helps to bridge the gap between the symbolic and literal aspects of the divine hummingbird and our human essence. And I have to say that while I was reading this book, I could really feel this. I was telling Noelle when we were waiting for the show to start and we were kind of chatting, it was suspenseful to me because it's a beautiful book. I'm going to hold it up. It's a beautiful book. There are some beautiful photographs in here of the hummingbird and then the baby bird. And it was so beautiful. And I felt like I was sitting on pins and needles, just my own self, waiting for, well, what was the hummingbird going to do next? And how is she doing this? And how does she know to do this? And then I want to plant all these flowers so that hummingbirds will have something to eat so that they could feed their babies. And the way this book was written, it was so respectful that it was so clear and respectful. You can't help but have an insight into this kingdom and into this part of life and want to notice more. So I really want to thank you for writing the book the way you did, because I really, I could tuck away and I could do it, and I would suggest that everybody, get their hands on it because it's lovely, really.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
And I was upset you went to France.
You know what's funny? Somebody else said that to me. I was doing, talking with someone, and they said, but I want you to know that when you went to Paris, I was actually upset with you.
So Noelle's taking us through this whole thing, of the mother and just how she was taking care of her home, getting ready for getting ready for her baby to come and all of this stuff. And then Noelle goes to France. And isn't there for the birth.
Right. And let me tell you, I struggled with
this. I bet you did.
A lot. And you think, okay, let's weigh this here. You have a trip to Paris, and it was the accommodations were actually free. It was through kind of a business associate that a friend of mine had. And so he was going to be on holiday away from his flat in downtown Paris for 8 days. And he said, you guys, please help yourself, enjoy. So our accommodations were free. We just paid for our flight. So it was one of those things that's like a no-brainer.
Right.
But then this little bird decides to nest. I become sort of attached to her for several weeks before the trip to Paris. And I tell you, I was just like, oh my gosh, I just know it. I know that I'm going to miss when the baby hatches, because at that point she was still incubating the egg. And sure enough, I went to Paris and the baby did hatch while I was away. But I remember packing photos of Artemis, Mommy Hummingbird, in my carry-on. And I would look at the pictures every so often on the plane. And my friend, I just love her, she would kind of giggle like, oh, you miss your little hummingbird, don't you? And I'd be like, yeah, I really do. And I came home around midnight. We had a late flight coming into LA here when the trip was over. And I think I got home around midnight or 12:30, and, it was dead, in the late spring, early summer. And my condo was just hot and stuffy.
Oops, she froze. Well, she'll come back. So let me tell you what she did. So she did not go right out and check on the hummingbird, Artemis. She named the mama bird Artemis. She did not go back out and check on Artemis. She went to sleep thinking she would get up in the morning and go back out in the daylight. But what actually happened was, and I'm not sure if this is the exact thing, but I think when she woke up in the morning, Artemis was waiting for her practically at her door, making sounds. So as if to say, what? You haven't come out and seen us yet? How could you go to sleep and not come out and seen us? So she went out, and there was, inside the nest, was the baby. And she chose to name the baby. Instead of giving the baby a name, she chose to say the baby. So it was just such an amazing story of how our worlds come together, how our worlds are so connected. We don't even realize it. And my being a witness to this occurrence for her lets me know how connected it is, even if I haven't experienced it myself. And it was really it was impactful for me. I don't know if anybody out there has ever had an experience like that. Debbie has said on the chat, let me find it. It's very fortunate occurrence. Many have reported watching animals in the wild, in their natural habitat, like i.e. owls. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have the sheer pleasure of, spontaneously getting a glimpse of something like this. But she actually got to watch it from beginning to end and was piecing pieces together of what was going on in that kingdom and then what was going on in our kingdom, and how connected they are, how the mother hummingbird was taking care of her baby as compared to how we as a mother take care of our children, how we feed. I mean, it was so fascinating to watch. I'm going to see if I have this picture of the hummingbird and how she fed her baby through her mouth. Let me see if we can. Do you think it would come through if we showed a picture? Because it was so interesting how she took her beak and she fed the baby. I'm hoping I can find it easily because it was so cool. And you'd want to see it. Anyway, I'm gonna look for it. But it's really fascinating, and just the entire relationship between this mother and how she would go into the nest and she would cuddle with her baby. And then at some point, it was getting harder and harder for her to cuddle with her baby because the nest was smaller and smaller. I don't know if you could see this. I don't know if this is close enough. Can you see that? I don't know. This was the coolest thing, watching the hummingbird actually feed her baby.
Yes, closer. We don't
Closer?
Need to see you.
You don't need to see me. There you go. Very cool. Very, very cool. So at one point, they were in the nest together. Is she back?
Yes, but it messed up.
Okay.
So now I have
All right. Here we go. We'll wait. She'll be back. There she is.
the picture now is squished.
Okay. Are you there? Okay, hand here.
I'm here.
Okay, good. Well, I was telling your story a little bit.
Okay, good. Thanks.
About how you came in, you went to sleep, figuring that you would get up in the morning and go check out and see what happened. But actually, was Artemis waiting for you at the door?
She came to my screen, about 5 o'clock in the morning, just when the sun started, or when the daylight started emerging, and I could hear her, like this faint flutter of her wings at my screen door. But what really woke me up is my cat always slept at the foot of my bed, and I could feel my cat kind of tensing up, like, what is that? What is that? And I kind of like, oh, and I sort of came to, and there she was, and she was just hovering, looking inside my room. And I was like, oh, hi. Mm-hmm. And there was just something that felt urgent in her, like, body language. And I thought, okay, I'm getting up. So I jumped out of bed, and of course I grabbed my camera, and I went out to the balcony. And I started, because I wasn't fully awake yet, I just focused in on the nest, and I just started clicking, not really knowing what I was going to get. And once I felt like I got enough pictures and I sort of was awake, I thought, okay, I'm awake now. I'm going to go and I'm going to make some coffee. So I go into the kitchen, and as I'm setting up the coffee and waiting for it to brew, I'm going through the photos, and I look at these photos, and I'm watching her feed the baby, this teeny, and you saw the photo, this teeny tiny little beak coming up out of the nest, and she's feeding her newborn. And I know, and people might say, well, gosh, I think she's, as I mentioned in the book, she might be anthropomorphizing this a little bit. She's kind of putting her human emotions on this bird, and maybe it was just a coincidence. But in my heart, I don't believe that, because she came to my screen door. She wanted me to wake up. I just feel that. And I went out and I responded, and sure enough, baby had hatched from his little egg, and I got the most beautiful pictures. And it was like she wanted me to see that whole week that I was in Paris. She wanted me to see, she knew, I think, I want to believe she knew that I was a little bit disheartened that I was going to be gone. And first thing when I got back, that's what she showed me.
So had she come to your screen before?
No.
Never. This was the first time she came to your screen.
This was the first time. And that's why it was very unusual. I was like, And in the book, I mentioned as I had to go around. I didn't want to go through my screen door because, like I said, my cat was right there. So I wasn't going to risk going out and having my cat dart out with me. So what I did is I went around out of my bedroom to the door from my living room that leads out to the same balcony. And so when I did that, I went out to the balcony and I watched her, and she flew across to the flowering bush. And I thought, okay, so, this isn't really that unusual. I mean, I've seen her do this a ton of times, but it was when she flew back to the nest, and I saw her perch on the edge, and I'm half asleep and I'm clicking, that I wasn't really, the baby's beak and head blended in with the nest so well that it was almost like I couldn't see it with my bare eye at the time. And it was only after I looked at the photos afterwards that I saw the little head and beak coming up out of the nest. And then, of course, hysterical tears.
Well, it's a great story, and I was telling everyone how she would go into the nest and cuddle with baby, and until he was getting, bigger and bigger, and then it was harder and harder to cuddle. It's harder and harder to stay in. So I just want to remind everyone, please feel free to call us at 919-518-9773 or Skype with us at computers2k. That's number 2, letter K. Voice. We'd love to have you. If you have any personal experiences that you want to share, we'd love to have you. So anyway, so the story goes that he gets bigger, and he does what he does. He practices flying, and then they fly away, and they leave eventually.
Yeah. And
you have this incredible connection to bats, bees, birds. So, right? So talk about, bring us to that point now with your love and your advocacy for all of those pollinators.
Well, what I, as this experience, took place, one of the things that I noticed about nature and this hummingbird was how balanced their lives are in that giving and receiving. Every time she'd come back to the nest and she'd have a beak full of pollen, I knew that as she went to 50, 100 flowers a day to gather nectar, that pollen was regenerating growth of all the flowers that she was visiting and all the, plants and the natural world around her. She was naturally pollinating, giving back every time she received. And one of the things that it sticks in my mind, and what is so important for human beings to realize, is that there's nothing out in our natural world that takes more than what it needs. There's nothing out in our natural world that overindulges. Nature out there and wildlife take only what they need at the time they need it to satiate themselves. They don't hoard, they don't overeat. And it was one of the things that I just thought, this is so much that we could learn. I mean, we're a society that just consumes and consumes and consumes. And one of the things that I would love people to just make a commitment to themselves, and not so much for the fitting into the bikini when summer rolls around to lose weight, but just to be part of the natural world that says, I will only take what I need in order for me to satiate and survive. I don't need to take more than that, because when you take more than that, you put that burden on all of the natural world around you that's providing that food. So with this story, I started really looking at the pollinators, and the pollinators are the workhorses of the planet that bring us all of our fruits, all of our vegetables, all of our grains. And I spoke with a beekeeper recently who said, if you want to see the magnitude of how worker bees, we'll just talk about worker bees and what they contribute to our planet, just know that 1 in every 4 things that we touch comes from some kind of pollination of something that brings it to you. And I remember that just being so powerful.
Yeah, that's a pretty extraordinary concept. I mean, say that one more time.
He said, 1 out of every 4 things that you touch has been somehow touched by a pollinator in some way. Even if it's something like your table, if it's, in so many ways, adamant and inanimate things, the things we eat, the things that we use, in our homes, things are created through some sort of pollination of some kind of material. And that was pretty powerful. I was like, really? And he kind of threw out some things, think about the trees, think about the wood that, makes your chairs, think about what pollinates those trees and how they proliferate, the growth of that.
I would think it's even a bigger number than that.
Oh, I'm sure.
When I'm looking around here right now, there's very little that I'm looking at that must not have been touched. What's not touched? Cotton. Everything's
look
touched.
At the clothes we wear.
Yeah, everything is touched. I never thought about it like that. Everything is touched.
And think about how benevolent all of these creatures are to give of that energy and that life force for us, because we hire them. We purposely go out and set up, beehives to mass pollinate a huge orchard of almonds, for example. The list of fruits and vegetables and grains that the single honeybee hives pollinate to produce for us. You go into a grocery store and nutritionists say, whatever you do, don't shop on the center aisles of a grocery store, because that food isn't real food. You always want to shop in the perimeter. You always want to shop where the fruits are, the vegetables are, the grains are, the breads are. Mm-hmm. And imagine if we didn't have our bees or our pollinators, what that grocery store would look like.
Right.
And so it was just one of those things that I just started to really appreciate the pollinators out there. And when I started to understand and learn and be more educated on colony collapse disorder for the honeybees and the different habitats of the bats and the butterflies and the birds that all pollinate are being destroyed. The monarch butterfly Last year in 2013 or 2012, I believe it was 2013, the migration into Mexico of the monarch butterfly was 20 less than it had been in 20 years. And so they're starting to worry about the habitats of the butterfly with certain pesticides that are affecting milkweed, which feeds the monarch butterfly. And then the pesticides that are destroying the honeybees with colony collapse disorder. That's, one proven theory now, that the neonicotinoids that are mass produced for agriculture as pesticides are destroying our bees.
So you talk a lot about spiritual pollination. So now, what is your concept of that?
Well, spiritual pollination is kind of that unseen spreading of a coalition of the willing, I call it. It's one of those things where internally, like I said, you make the commitment to the natural world around you through your own personal choice. No one has to know. It doesn't have to be out there where you say, oh, look, I'm doing this for that. But that relationship, that internal spiritual relationship that you feel connected to the natural world around you, and you say through your actions, through your purchasing power, I'm going to reduce my consumption because I care. Then there's also, for those, I've spoken to people that say, I'm not a vegetarian, and I'm not here to judge. I'm not a vegetarian. I choose my food very carefully, and I don't eat a lot of meat. But one of the things about spiritual pollination is to be thankful for the animal and the Mother Earth that has given itself to you when you sit down and have a meal. And prayer over food has been around forever. But I think people forget about that. So spiritual pollination is when I have that meal set down in front of me, I myself, and I teach my children that there is an animal or a force of nature that brought this meal to me, and I am grateful because I know my connection to it. Mm-hmm. So you quiet your mind and you just say thank you. That is spiritual pollination.
Why do you think that you were privy to this extraordinary experience with the hummingbird? Why you?
I ask myself that all the time. I really do. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I did experience this, but I think it's out there everywhere, and anybody can experience it if you care. This particular experience, I think, was definitely for my emotional and physical healing, but it was also something that I needed to learn about seeing moment by moment the beauty around me that I take for granted. And when I learned that, I felt at some point, because I wasn't going to write a book, this was just my personal experience, and I kind of chalked it up as this is just for me. But as time went on, I thought, there's so much goodness in life, and we're seeing so much negativity in our world, but nature is free. And there's no cover charge. And all you have to do is walk outside and open yourself up to say to the natural world around me, speak in a language I can understand, and I guarantee you it will change you. Mm-hmm. It softens your heart. I remember being kind of like a tough cookie, and the more I started to really open myself up to the gentleness of nature, it changed my heart. I felt myself just becoming softer and more relaxed in who I was. It really, nature is such a gift to us humans.
I'm listening to you, and I'm also imagining a woman who's let go of a lot of fear.
Yeah. Definitely.
We all have fear. That's why we do the show called Breaking Free. We don't always say, well, this is a breaking free moment, or this is a moment of freedom, or see, this is why we do the show. But my desire and my hope is that every time somebody listens, some chipping away of this freedom occurs, even if we don't ever mention it. And it could be a year down the road, somebody watches it and oops, something happens. But in this moment, your sense of freedom and this release from fear has to have been just really monumental.
Huge. And you know, this is an absolute routine of me in my life now. Whenever something good is happening, good, you know, everything is good. But when I label it, this is a good thing happening, or this isn't such a great thing happening. But no matter what's going on in my life, I want to share it with the outdoors. So it's really strange. If something great happens, the first thing I want to do is put on my tennis shoes, go for a walk, and say thank you to just this massive goodness that's in nature. And if something not so great is going on and there's a disappointment in my life, the first thing I want to do is put on my tennis shoes and breathe in that release and trust that everything's happening just the way it should. Everything in nature is happening exactly the way it should. And I am not called human nature on accident. I am part of nature. So whatever's going on in my life, it's okay. And I'm drawn to go out and share it with that which I am a part of. And that's everything: the ocean, the trees, the flowers, the bees, the butterflies, the birds, the squirrels, the skunks, everything. I just feel part of it. I love it so much.
So what would you suggest for people to do that have not had this experience, can't see themselves as part of the nature chain? What do you suggest people do? I mean, yeah, going out and taking a walk, taking a run, going to the beach, all those are fabulous things. But to be able to experience the call of nature, to be able to experience what's going on, the law of nature, to be able to experience the fluidness of nature, what do you suggest people do? You've touched upon, you're like this bridge, you've touched upon something at length, not just for an hour, but at length. You've watched an entire process. So your eye has, you have a keen sense of which you'll never let go of. Once you've had that experience, I can't imagine it ever dissipating. So how would the rest of us, well, what would you say? I mean, I feel this kind of from listening to you and reading the book and all that, but what else would you suggest people do to experience it?
Well, there's people that say, just get out in nature. But really, after this experience with the hummingbird, I was so elated, like, oh my gosh, this is such a beautiful thing. I can't believe it. And I would then go outside and I would say, okay, I'm open and receptive. I want to see more. I want to feel more. And I meant it. And I think that is the most important thing, is if people really want to commune with the natural world around them, that natural world around them is highly intelligent and knows the intention of the heart. And when you really mean it, it will respond in like. And I think that's the most important thing, is the authentic heart is what nature responds to. And after this experience, it never stopped. I mean, the other creatures that would show up in my life doing things that nobody else was paying attention to. And because I just happened to say, I want to see you, I want to feel you, I would watch ravens building their nest, and they'd be picking up branches right in front of me, and there was no fear, and they're huge. You don't realize how big ravens are because we see them from so far away. When they say, hey, I'm gonna get close to you and I want you to see how majestic I am, you're in awe. There are things out there that I've seen, the natural processes around me of the creatures out there that I can't even believe I've been privy to since the hummingbird. And it all stemmed from my authentic heart that said, this is what brings me such profound joy. Please don't stop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get emotional talking about it because I want everybody to experience that enrichment in their lives, and it's free.
Mm-hmm.
It's free. You don't have to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you just, the supreme intelligence knows when we're being truthful, when we really want to be a part of it. And there is no way God, or however we label it, is going to refuse us this beauty that it's been placed on this earth with us. There's no way. That's not how it works.
I think, what you've experienced and many other people have, I'm sure, to some degree, is really amazing. And I think we all, many of us, I shouldn't say all, have touched upon something that will go, wow, that was amazing, or wow, that was a miracle, or wow, did you see that? Or, I've had a relationship with a dog or a cat that was like, they could read each other's minds, read each other's hearts. And I think if we stop long enough and engage in this type of conversation, you can't help but want to say, well, what else is there? What else exists beyond the veil? What else is there that we can cross over to? And just as you've so eloquently put it, there's so much more that once you open up your heart to, and the consciousness of, and this awareness that it's there, it connects with you. Mm-hmm. Just like the hummingbird coming to your screen, it connects with you. I believe in this. I now have this new curiosity, mm-hmm. because I want to see what else is there.
Yeah, I challenge anybody. Test it. Mm-hmm. Test my theory, if you will, that if you, and sometimes a miracle, and you see it overnight, you say, I'm open and receptive to this, and the next day you go out and you see something, you go, oh my gosh. Or like anything else, it's patience, and you keep faithful to that. I'm open and receptive, and you don't give up, and then suddenly it will show up. It's just a matter of time. That the natural world, the universe, the beautiful universe that we live in, this planet Earth, will open herself to you in ways that you would never imagine if you're authentic enough. Right. And it never stops. It'll never stop. And you know what the best thing about it is? Something inside changes you. So you don't go out there and judge something like seeing a spider, and you watch this spider build its web. And it is really the most fascinating thing to see exactly how this thing works in this perfect rhythm. And something changes in your heart that you don't go out and go, well, that's not that big of a deal. I'm going to wait for something better. No. What happens is you start to feel that every single thing is extraordinary within the ordinary. And so it doesn't have to be, cubs being born in Africa to, a beautiful lion pride or whatever, something where you think, well, these people get to experience these really extraordinary things. No, we're talking about simple stuff. Like if you watch the hard collaborative work of an anthill, and you focus on one ant and see exactly what that one ant is doing amongst the thousands of them, you're hysterically laughing. Me and my husband experienced that one time walking to breakfast one morning, and we could not take our eyes off this one ant in this entire hill of ants that we were just fascinated with exactly what this one's job was. And it was hysterical.
And the laughter is what? Just define what the laughter is about. I think I know what it is. I want to hear it from you.
Why we laughed.
Yeah, what's the laughter?
The laughter was because this one ant had a little pebble, a little piece of rock that he was so desperately, it was what happens with me is I have a very active imagination. So I almost write little stories in my head about what I'm observing. So it was like a human that wants so badly to say, look it, I'm strong enough to carry this thing, and there's no way I'm going to put it down because I know I can get it over to where everybody else is putting their little rocks that are much smaller. And so this one ant would not give up this little pebble that I knew, my husband knew, and I know he knew was just a little too heavy for him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we were hysterically laughing because in our own minds, and again, this might be anthropomorphizing, but that's the fun part of being in nature, because we can empathize. You know, we place our human emotions on that and go, oh my God, that's hysterical. Mm-hmm. So we were hysterically laughing at it, and we appreciated it so much because that's their little world. Yeah. And guess what? We're part of it.
Right. And I would add to the laughter is incredible, because when you see something that is so extraordinarily brilliant, there's a laughter of like such joy and connection over something that, you know, it's just like, just check it out. It's great.
Yes.
Debbie wants to know, did you ever want to be an entomologist?
I'm going to have to humble myself and say, what is that?
I don't know. I thought you knew. Debbie, what is it? It's a study of something, I'm sure. Let me ask. I thought you would know, but let me ask. Okay, I'm asking her now and see if anybody knows. Let me know. I didn't know what it was either. I was hoping you did, because I was going to ask you, what is that?
I'm gonna, you know,
study of insects.
No, because I don't. It's not a study really of anything. It's just an observation of what that particular creature is willing to show me. Mm-hmm. So it's not. I feel that's the study of something, and the science about something is different than what happens when we just let our heart take us someplace, and we connect with it and just simply appreciate for how we're observing it. Mm-hmm. So I don't really study anything. I just observe. And like I said, my mind tells all of these, and this is why I'm going into writing a lot of children's books, because I have a very active imagination. When I watch something out there doing something, a story starts to form in my head, like the ant, or like the ravens that keep, their partners, and the one partner is holding up a stick to the other one saying, do you think this would be a good addition to our home? Mm-hmm. And the partner walks over and kind of touches it with her beak and says, no, I don't like the color of that couch. Let's get another one. Let's keep looking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I do. And it's
watch stuff.
It's interesting because when I'm listening to it, I'm visualizing all these different kingdoms and all these different animals doing something that depicts what we already do. Maybe they all do it a little differently, and they focus in something that one of the other kingdoms might not focus in on. But when you put it all together, we're all mirroring each other.
Absolutely. And that's the most important aspect, is we're all mirroring each other, because we are all part of nature. We are all connected. And I know that's a very esoteric concept for a lot of people, because you hear it all the time. So it's sort of a cliche. Mm-hmm. Yes, we're all connected. We're all one. But I don't know any other way to express that than to put yourself out there and see how a mother hummingbird mirrors and parallels our own human mother's behavior. Each time a human mother's child reaches another milestone in his or her growth, emotional needs, physical needs, who's there to accommodate? Mom and dad, the parents. That's exactly what the animal kingdom does. That little hummingbird, the smallest bird known to man, did the exact same thing that humans did. Each time that baby needed something new in his evolution, she was there. She accommodated.
And she knew what to do.
Yep, she knew what to do. So we're part of that.
Yeah, so Debbie wants to know, are you involved with any of the environmental groups that help protect the earth?
I am involved in the Pollinator Protection Campaign right now, which is based out of San Francisco. And so it's a pollinator partnership. And what they do is they do a lot of research on colony collapse disorder, on the habitats of our pollinators. And right now, that's kind of where my heart is. And my company, Benevolent, 10% of the sales goes to the pollinator partnership. Mm-hmm. Now, personally, for me, I support the Humane Society and the ASPCA because I have a love for animals. I love, our domestic animals, our cats and our dogs, and I want to see them loved and supported. And I want to be a faithful steward to everything around us that are vulnerable. So a part of those organizations, I'm not employed with them, but I contribute to them. Mm-hmm. I give money to them. I do what I can to help.
Well, thank you for bringing this to my attention and to all of us out here, because I know that, listening to this will help us all become more freer. So I'm going to hold up your book, and I would love you to tell us about your book and how people can find it.
You can buy it on my website, which is benevolent.com. It's BEE as in honeybee, -Nevolent, NEVOLENT, benevolent.com. And that's where I'm able to give the 10% proceeds to the pollinator partnership. You can also buy it on Amazon. So, it's available at all those other channels. It just depends on how the purchase contributes to the pollinators, or if someone just has an Amazon account and that's what they want to do. I want to encourage whatever feels right for whoever. So you can buy it on my website, and you can also learn more about what I do. You can see a lot of my photography on there, because since the creatures that I've been able to photograph and the natural world around us that has presented itself and said, tell my story, take my picture, is amazing. And and then I'm on Facebook, Noelle Mead Izzi, and you can find me there. You can find me on LinkedIn. So, yeah.
This has been great. And I really thank you so much for helping us, focus and bring the awareness to this, because, it takes somebody, and you do it so colorfully. So I think that helps too, bring it alive. And the book really is, I read it yesterday and I really, really enjoyed it. And I really didn't want to put it down. So it was like reading any novel. And I could see this happening. I could see this whole relationship between you and Artemis. And I was just thrilled to be a part of it and to know that this exists. I think that's part of why this is so cool, is that we can know this exists. Mm-hmm. And you are a good, really good voice for the pollinators and for these animals, so that, you're like the bridge to welcome us all in to that kingdom and to, visualize it. So I encourage everyone to do that. And if I can be of any service, if anybody has an idea for a show or an idea, or you need help with something, coaching, click above my name. Or click my name, not above my name, above my head to my name, and just email me and let me know what I can do for you, because I am here to help in any way I can. And so there was one line, or not a line, but just this phrase that Noelle used in her book about the sun's love, and that was lovely. And I just wanted just to leave you all with that visualization of the sun's love and what there is to offer each and every one of us. So Noelle, you've been a phenomenal guest. Do you have any final word?
Just, get out there in nature and allow it to shine its just benevolent, magnificent light on you, and it will really change your life. It really will.
Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing with us.
Thank you.
And anytime you have a new project or anything you want to share, let me know.
Okay, I will.
Okay? And with that, I want to say goodbye to everyone. I'll see you outside. Bye. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, and if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals. That VidBlasterGuy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.